The amazing thing about the mushrooms is that they speak. They talk to you. They will answer questions, carry on conversations. Psilocybin just pulls up a chair on the porch and puts its feet up.
All right, my friends. This is it. I hope. I have sat down to do this about a dozen times and for various reasons have had to restart. And I feel like now is the right time. This is the one that's going to stick. And I think it's good that it happened that way because it's given me a lot of time to really sit with what is a very important, even monumental episode for me. Many of you who are listening are my personal friends, and those of you who aren't personal friends, I want you to know how much your listenership, your support has meant to me as a human being. Behind every piece of content that we expose ourselves to, whether it be something like this, a reflective, introspective, or all the way on to pornographic videos, there's a human being on the other side there. And I believe more and more that everything we do is an attempt to facilitate connection. And I have felt so connected to so many people who have reached out and expressed value in the work that I do and what I offer. There are many people who have come to me and said they've been following my work for a long time and have really appreciated my honesty and vulnerability. And that's what I'm going to continue to bring to the table. I believe that is those are really important traits to model. Some of you have been with me for the entire 25 years that I have been exploring psychedelics, the psychedelic experience intentionally. I have been so excited to record this episode because it is, first and foremost, in all honesty, it's for me. Very little, if any, of the work that I have done over the years, be it psychedelic sessions, consuming mushrooms, podcasts, very, very little of what I have done has been just for me. And in ways, this episode marks a turning point in my life, not where I will become selfish, but where I am learning to love and value and honor myself more. And the interesting thing about that is that as we love ourselves more, we find ourselves more capable of loving others more. And so a lot of what I hope to express in this episode, convey through my energy and my words, is really deep gratitude and love for my family, my community, my work, my own life force, my creator. It is really a miraculous gift that we are able to be together. So before I go too far, I want to thank one person, two people from the start. There's been a few names that I mentioned through this episode. But from the start, as I have been reflecting back on 25 years of intentional psychedelic work, the first person that comes to my mind that I want to express real gratitude to and for is a guy known as Aaron Z. That's not his last name, but that's what he goes by. His last name is very long, Z word, that I can pronounce, but I won't. And why I want to thank Aaron particularly is because first, when I moved to a new high school that my parents forced me to go to, a Catholic high school, where, it was in a different town, we were being bussed over. I grew up in small town Kentucky and was pretty shy, pretty self-conscious. This individual really took me in, and his family also was always very open. His father actually was the first person that explained the yin yang to me, and that single event has continued to have an impact. But Aaron really opened his heart and self up to me in high school when I didn't have any friends, and it made all of the difference. Aaron was also the first person to smoke cannabis with me. Thank you for that. Your parents caught us in the act, and I didn't even care. I was so in love with Mary Jane. Aaron, you were also the first person to introduce LSD and psilocybin to me. Obviously, life-changing. And I just can't help but think that things would be very different had we not met. And so whatever the creative force is that brought us together, I am very grateful for that. Also, kind of within the same context, there's a high school teacher that I still have quite a bit of contact with through social media, Connie McDowell. Your encouragement and support of my interests gave me so much confidence to dive into those interests. I will never, ever, ever forget, ever, that you acquired a preserved rattlesnake for me to dissect while the rest of the class was dissecting frogs. That single event, that single experience had such an impact on me, and it has helped me. These experiences and others like them have helped me really become aware of how valuable and how important our influence and example can be to others. And it's in large part what has inspired me to be the most authentic self that I can be, in the hopes of inspiring others to do the same. A lot of people think my work is about psychedelics, and psychedelics are a big part of my work, but really my mission, purpose in this life, I feel at this time, and for a very long while have felt, is to inspire others to embrace their passion. You were given inspiration. You are drawn towards experiences and subject matter for a reason. I was pulled to psychedelics, to psilocybin and mushrooms generally, for reasons that I could not understand at that time. And a lot of it's still unfolding. And so everything I do is really to point you in the direction of yourself. And that's ultimately what the mushrooms and the rest of the psychedelics do as well, is remind us who we truly are. Beautiful beings of infinite light, curious, exploratory, powerful, creative, conscious, collective. So, while this episode in particular, it is for me, that means it's also for you, because, well, we are each other. So, here I am, 45 years old, 25 years since my very first mushroom trip with my aforementioned friend. And yes, I went full in to mushrooms after that experience. It wasn't particularly psilocybin that I was compelled to explore, but mushrooms in general. And it opened up an an endless field of inquiry. But that seminal moment when I was sitting on the toilet right before the mushrooms came on, wondering, what's this going to be like? I had no idea that it was going to change my life forever. And as I sat there and watched the shadow of the toilet paper holder turn into a snake and climb up the wall, and laughed out loud, and could hear my friends in the next room saying, "Oh yeah, he's getting somewhere now." That somewhere felt like home. I truly felt like I had found my spiritual home. And I feel that way still, and even more in the community that gathers around the mushroom and these experiences. And as I step into this next phase, after a quarter century of working with mushrooms, I believe that I'm stepping into a new phase, not only of this podcast, which we're going to be going into in this episode, but of my work overall and of my life overall. Psychedelics and pathogens have, as of late, I feel like unlocked doors that I had no idea were even there to be unlocked. MDMA in particular has been exceedingly powerful in opening my heart. The ethical non-monogamy that my wife and I have been practicing for the last 11 years, particularly over the last year when we were in a long-term relationship with someone that we still love very dearly, opened my heart in ways that I just never knew was possible. And I want to more and more bring that open heart to my work in this podcast. I want you to hear it. I want you to feel it. I want you to feel safe and feel seen. And I want you to know that you are the safety. It is your love. It is your open heart that is the safe space. So anyway, the podcast. While yes, this episode is for me to express a lot of gratitude and kind of reflect on my life experience, it's also to give you some context to understand what this is going to look like moving forward. I've had a lot of people who have expressed ongoing support, listenership, who are, dare I say, fans of the show and my work. And so in loving and respecting myself and giving myself the time to really go through what this is going to look like, I'm also translating that and transferring that to you. I want to do more. I will do more. I'm already doing more. But I feel a real calling to show my appreciation to those of you who have shown appreciation to me. All right. So, yes, it has been a wild ride since I have partnered with these here mushrooms. And as I reflect on the show and share with you what the new format is going to look like, I'm going to do it kind of in the style of the new format. But it's going to be progressive. I think we are becoming ready as a culture to get back into some more, dare I say, substantive content. TikTok is great. I love my TikTok, don't get me wrong. But there is enormous value in really getting to know the people and the experiences, the context of what we're exposing ourselves to. Remember, whatever you consume through your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, or skin is becoming a part of you. It's kind of like we're making love. All right, so Psilocybin Says, like most of my projects since about 2009, was the direct outcome of a psychedelic download. And if I'm really honest with myself, most of my life after 1999, when I had my first experience, psychedelic experience at 19, has been shaped by sacred mushrooms or other psychedelics. LSD, I can't thank you enough. I will admit, when I was 19 years old, I wasn't really consciously on a spiritual journey. I mean, since I was a very young child, I have been very spiritually minded. I was fully devoted to the Catholic faith because I wanted to please God, right? And then when I saw the pedophilia scandal, I knew that wasn't God. And that was about the time that I came across psychedelics. The reason I took psychedelics originally was, as we say here in Kentucky, to get bent, which means to get inebriated or intoxicated. I've always had, or since I've had my first experience with alcohol, I have had a deep love and value to altered states. And I still do, as you may be obviously aware of. Fortunately, those altered states have moved into a little more healthy realm. Back then, I thought psychedelics were bad for me, eating my brain, even the mushrooms. Right? Now we know they're good for us, even LSD. Also, those substances or experiences have helped me move away from more harmful behaviors like alcohol consumption or over-consuming cannabis. That first experience, recreational, was truly a recreation of myself. Spending 4 hours, at least 4 hours, melting crayons over top of a giant wooden wire spool, goofing off with paint and clay. I didn't know in the middle of that it was going to be an experience that would change my life forever. I didn't know why in that experience I could not stop making spirals. Everything that I did with the wax, with the clay, with the paint was a spiral. I didn't know that was going to change the way that I expressed myself artistically up to this day. I didn't know why or where the messages were coming from as I sat there mildly concerned that I couldn't stop making spirals. These messages that kept saying, it's all energy, Eric, it's all energy. And yet the voice and the communication felt so safe and so trustworthy. And I remember thinking that the mushrooms were talking to me. I didn't even know the word psilocybin. These magic mushrooms are talking to me. They're telling me everything. And I started to engage back. You mean the person sitting next to me is just energy? Just energy, Eric. It's all energy. You mean the clay in my hands? It's all energy, Eric. It's all energy. You mean the walls, the windows, the doors? It's all energy. It's all energy. And that very first thing that psilocybin said to me continues to be one of the most profound lessons that I continue to try and integrate into my daily life. Even here right now, it's energy that I'm bringing to you and sharing with you. And I want that energy to be open, loving, kind, compassionate, curious. And I hope you can feel it. Even my 7-year career as a middle school teacher was directly related to my work with mushrooms. They've literally informed every aspect of my lifestyle since I have consumed them that first time. Back then, working at an Applebee's, I dropped out of school, making a bunch of cash money as a server, and thought, who needs education? Oh, but the mushrooms had a different message for me. They kept telling me, there's more for me to bring to the world. There's more for me to do. I am more than this. And that's why I went back to school, because of the mushrooms, because psilocybin said to. They've told me the same thing about my use of media as well. Way back, 7 or 8 years ago, when I started my first podcast, I had a much more or less serious. There wasn't as much intentionality behind it. And as time has progressed and I've taken myself a little more seriously, a little more professionally, I have come to see that I have great value as a listener, as a conversationalist. And it was the mushrooms that told me to redo, to do this thing, which is Psilocybin Says. Wow. Yeah, I'm really glad that I had some time to go over this repeatedly. Oh, our setbacks are setting us up for greater success. Perhaps you've listened to some of the other shows I have produced. The first podcast, originally called the Magnificent Mushrooms Podcast, named after the farm that I started in Paoli just before Courtney and I were arrested. That was the first kind of iteration of the Psilocybin Chronicles, which then got a revamp as the work in Jamaica progressed, and became specifically focused around the individuals that we worked with in Jamaica. Some of them were facilitators and some of them were guests, but really just trying to help people get comfortable with psilocybin. In whenever that was that podcast started, psilocybin was still not a well-known word, and there was still a ton of stigma around it. There's still quite a bit, but significantly less, and I do think a lot of that has to do with the work that Courtney and I have done. That podcast in particular, I know, helped a lot of people feel more comfortable with psilocybin mushrooms. I was pretty proud of that show, I will say. It's still out there online if you want to give it a listen, the Psilocybin Chronicles. There are some pretty amazing interviews because of the amazing folks that I interviewed. And as you may know, if you were a listener to that show, or you can easily see if you go and listen to it now, that it just kind of ended abruptly, just out of nowhere, gone. I won't go into the reasons for that right now, but I do want my listeners to know that that is not how I roll. And obviously here with this podcast, Courtney and I gave you a 4-hour episode to launch it, and I'm here now trying to communicate this transition and the context and motivation behind it. So it's very, very important to me to communicate with you all, because your attention, your energy, your time, there's nothing more valuable. There's nothing more valuable than the time that you spend listening to this or anything else. When that episode of my life ended, I found myself the night before leaving Jamaica on the beach in a spontaneous trance state. It was one of the more, it was one of the stranger, more mystical experiences of my life. It was not induced by mushrooms, at least not acutely. Certainly the mushrooms that I've been taking over the last, 20 years at that point had played a role, but something else, something came over me. Something communicated with me very strongly. And as I paced the beach for hours, I remember it just, like it was the same voice as the first mushroom trip, said, "Say psilocybin, say psilocybin, say psilocybin." And I couldn't, in the moment, I understood that as you have to say psilocybin loud and proud to the public. And I have been doing that. And it was also an indication to me to begin a project that would be mine, all mine, just mine. I understood it even then as the beginning of what we would call a lifestyle brand or a lifestyle experience, because psilocybin has had such an impact on my lifestyle. And over the course of that evening, the Say Psilocybin slowly became Psilocybin Says. Psilocybin Says. And I was told that this project would be a creation of mine where I would be able to unapologetically share my most authentic self in the hopes of empowering others to do the same. And maybe, hopefully, some of you listening right here, right now, have felt that through the episodes that Courtney and I have produced, because that has been very much the energy behind what I share. I won't go into the whole circumstances, but I will say that in the context of sharing your most authentic and vulnerable self, having that intimate, authentic, vulnerable self weaponized against you is one of the deepest betrayals that anyone can experience, even if it's from someone that you don't really consider a friend or a loved one. But when it's someone or people who you do consider trusted friends, partners, well, it'll do one of two things on you. It'll either cause you to shut down and hide yourself from the rest of the world forever in the fear of being exposed and being abused again, or it will empower you to bring your truest self to the world in the most joyful, confident, playful, unwavering way, so that nobody can ever do that again. To have your livelihood, to have your self used as a threat against you when you are a loving human being who makes mistakes, well, it ultimately speaks to those who threaten you. And I will take a moment to try and communicate to you something that I have learned pretty strongly in the last couple of months, is that others' thoughts and criticisms of you, it is so much more about them than you. Remember, this is truth. We do not see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. So, in that altered state, I kept hearing this say psilocybin, psilocybin says. And again, for the last 25 years, it is psilocybin has been telling me what to do. And psilocybin has something to say about pretty much everything. So, here we are, moving forward in that endeavor. Now, do I believe that it's really the mushroom that's talking to me? Before we go further, people have asked this, do you really think the mushrooms are talking to you? Well, the truth is I don't know. And anybody that says that they do know, you know that they really, really don't know. Because those that know will tell you that they don't know. It does absolutely seem like the mushrooms are talking to us, does it not? Perhaps that's because it's our intuition or our higher self needs some kind of third party to communicate information to us. Observing ourselves as an outsider can provide some really valuable insight. And so while, over the last 2 or 3 years, however long Courtney and I have been doing this podcast, we have definitely touched on lifestyle topics. I guess what I want to acknowledge here is that it has inadvertently become a mouthpiece for Sanctuary. The Sacred Mushroom Church that she and I founded. Actually, it was Athena and I that started the Sacred Mushroom Church, and Courtney, after a little bit of conversation, jumped on board. Understandably, she was a little resistant. We've been through a lot, and starting a church is not a small thing. Sanctuary is growing quickly, and this was a perfect platform to help others become aware of Sanctuary, and it will continue to, in some ways, speak to Sanctuary. Sanctuary is a sponsor for this podcast, so as time goes on, you'll start to hear ads and things coming from Sanctuary and other advertisers. But I tell you, just sitting here right now and looking back on this with Sanctuary and the past with Maiko and thinking about Athena, it's just incredible how far we've come, what this wild ass journey has looked like. The three of us packed up and left Jamaica pretty much at the same time, and came here and really, if I might say, courageously and confidently and really considerately began this church. And I think that's why it's had such momentum. And so, with that, I really want to express enormous gratitude to Athena in particular. Courtney, I thank you all the time, and I will continue to thank you on this show. Athena, we have very much have that big brother, little sister relationship, and I was not always the best big brother. I will say that. And to you, continue to try to just grow more compassionate and considerate. And I just cannot thank you enough. You have shown up when nobody else would. You have shown up when it really mattered. And I consider you part of my family, and I have a deep, deep love and appreciation for you. Before I go any further, thank you for your patience. Thank you for hanging with me. There's a lot going. You can see, obviously, I've scripted this out. I've worked on this several times, and yet there's still so much that's going through my heart and head here. You can see that if you're watching the video, and I encourage you to do so, because we've created a new little studio set. I'm in my little bat cave here, or snake cave, as the case may be. And before I go any further, in reflecting on Athena and these other folks who have been so formative in my life, I want to take a minute to read out a few names of people who have been really extra special, who have really supported and encouraged myself and Courtney and Sanctuary and Psilocybin Says and Maiko and so many projects that I've worked on over the years. So if you're not aware of these people, then just bear with me. Or, you don't have to listen to this episode either. So first off, I want to thank Steve and Nancy Headland. You all came to Jamaica and continued to support our work and have gone so far as to move here to Kentucky and help found Sanctuary. Really, you are foundational to this work. Honor Boone, who has been on the podcast as well. Thank you so much. Same thing, from California to Jamaica to here in Louisville. It's pretty wild. I know that you didn't move here for Sanctuary. It was an interesting coincidence that means a lot to me. Kevin Singleton, brother, you're getting ready to move here this weekend from Texas. What is up? This is pretty crazy, y'all. There are, for top of this list are four folks actually, who have moved to Louisville since our meeting in Jamaica. 3 of those 4 intentionally coming here to help with Sanctuary and to be a part of Sanctuary. That's phenomenal. Kevin, watching your journey has been incredible. I can't wait to have you back on the show in the new studio to talk about your growth, particularly with breath work. It's been incredible to watch you grow, my man. Jeff Love here in town. Brother, you have been such a welcomed friend in the last few years. Amy Hyde, I love you. Thank you so much for everything that you are and have been in my life and the life of so many others. Ronnie Hager, my brother, another mother. Years and years we've been walking this road together, and God, you show up. You show up for the conversations that are needed. You provide compassionate reflection. You help me be a better man. Laura G, I won't say your last name, but my sister. I love you, Purple. Amy Samuelson, Jason F. Tink, Sanctuary, Psilocybin Says even would not be what it is without you two in particular. You work so hard to bring this medicine, this experience, this healing to so many people. And you are so patient with me. So thank you. Oh, Bob and Kathy McClure, my in-laws. You know those jokes they have about in-laws? Well, they don't apply to me. We may not agree on certain things, but boy, oh boy, you all are an example of unconditional love, an example that I never had, and I thank God every single day that my children have you, and I have you. Because my parents aren't on this list. Charles Azradeff. I don't know how to say your last name, bro. I'm sorry. I fucking love you, though. Oh, dude. Where is he at? I'm not going to get him down, but you already know. We're going to eat some mushrooms together soon, I bet. Omar Thomas down in Jamaica, brother. We got work to do. I'm looking forward to it. Also, in Jamaica, my brother from another mother, Kevin Daly. You've continued to be an encouragement, and I continue to encourage you. It's coming. It's coming for us both. Sean Duvall, my brother out there, you've been patient with me, and you've been a great encouragement to me. And I feel you out there trying. Lester, you the man. They Psilocybin said it, and you answered the call. Now we're doing it. How crazy is that? Like we had no idea each other existed, and the mushrooms connected us. It's happened more than once. Yeshua, thank you for all that you are doing for the Maine community, and thank you for being a colleague with me, a reflector. I really, really value your work and your friendship. Debbie Pierce, you are fucking golden. And I'm so excited for all that you are doing and are going to do to help people transition. Of course, Connor, dude, we're going to do some cool stuff together. I got a feeling. I fucking love you, bro. James, I won't say your last name either, James, just because you are so out there. Well, I love you. I love your insights. I love your heart. And lastly, on my list, I know there's people that I'm forgetting here, and I'm so sorry. But Emil, dude, for years you've been following this work, been supporting me, and when we finally got to connect in person, it made all the sense. I love you like a brother. I love you like a brother. There's a lot of other people out there. Bradley Seward, your name comes to mind as well. You've been a massive supporter. There's so many people, and I'm sorry for those names that I didn't mention. But I just wanted to be really intentional and share some of those that came to my mind as I sat down briefly. People who have really had an impact in encouraging me. All of us have no idea the impact that a little bit of encouragement can have on another person. So, Why this show? What's going on here? I have had an insatiable interest in so many topics. When other people talk about how much they hated going to school as a kid, I never got it. I always, even when I didn't like the teacher, Sister Bernadine, even when I didn't like you and you're trying to smack my hand with the ruler because I didn't do the algebra right, I still wanted to learn. My mind has always sought out novelty and new experiences and new information. I love to listen. I love to explore. I love to assimilate and connect various disciplines, which is the heart of education. The realization that everything is connected. And that is also, of course, a huge part of the psychedelic experience. The fact that we can extrapolate data from any given system and apply it to numerous seemingly unconnected systems, and in seeing that crossover, that is where genius happens. That is where magic happens, where paradigms are blown to bits and where we can paradoxically stand on the sure footing of unknowing. I digress, but yes, this tributary does feed to the sea of expanded awareness that we're trying to get to here. All right, the format. I know I keep going off the rails here. I keep talking about all different things, but I'm really trying to include a lot in this. Again, this is for me. You don't have to listen. But for those of you who do want to listen, here's what you can expect from the podcast now. A little more structure, a little more dynamism. What does that mean? How's that going to look? Here we go. It's probably going to take us all a little while to get used to it, but I promise the payoff is going to be rich. These podcast episodes, as you experience them, will now be converted into what Connor and I are calling chapters. Okay, so here's the idea. I'm going to take a lifestyle topic and dive into it deeply in the following manner. Each subject, each chapter, will open with a monologue like this one, not this long though. It kind of provides my thoughts on the subject prior to digging into it. Then, and still part of the same topical chapter, I will interview individuals who are experts or just experiencers in said topic. So, for instance, I'm very excited to share with you what is already chapter 2 about sex. I love sex. And not just the act of sex, not just, soft lovemaking or rough pornographic sex. I love all sex that is intentional, soul-binding, energy-shifting, consciousness-altering, ego-dissolving, deep connection that happens when we engage with sexuality consciously. I believe it to be one of the most important and most unhealthily represented aspects of lifestyle. And I've got some pretty kick-ass guests lined up already to discuss the topic. That's how it's going to look. Hopefully you get that. Now, I think this is going to really allow us to dig into a variety of topics and understand them differently and maybe more thoroughly through a psychedelic lens. If you've been following my work, you know I like to do things differently, and I think it's time we break out of this current paradigm, this echo chamber of psychedelic experts talking to psychedelic experts. The interesting thing is that psychedelics is a pretty brand new field, and there are certainly a whole lot of experts in a field that is so young, and in a field that really, as 25 years deep in it, I can tell you takes a lot of time to get accustomed to gain any knowledge in, honestly. So I know you're probably wondering, and you're probably a little disappointed, thinking, where's Courtney? Well, my intention all along was for Psilocybin Says to be mine. All mine. No, seriously. One of the things that I learned from making experience is that I need a place to tell my own story, be my own self, create my own thing. Otherwise, someone will misrepresent me or hijack my creation. It just seems to be the way these things go, particularly in the world of psychedelics. We're seeing this quite a bit right now. Again, it's amazing that there are so many inexperienced people touting themselves as experts to get credibility and hopefully make a bunch of money. I can't think of another field that has the similar extent of this issue. We've got integration experts, psychedelic business experts, facilitation experts, and we've just begun working with these modalities. Modalities that do not fit into our current rational, Western, particularly medical paradigm. And most of the experts are trying to fit it in that box. That's where I'm going to be doing something very different. All right, so anyway, Psilocybin Says is my opportunity to present myself to the world without giving an FUCK what partners or corporate entities or even a religious organization that I founded may think of it. I'm edgy, I'm unconventional, and I'm eccentric, qualities that are not always welcome in corporate context. When I came back to the States and started Psilocybin Says, one of the ways that I wanted to use my digital real estate was to help my amazing, beautiful, talented, kind, devoted, considerate, incredible wife gain confidence in sharing herself, her wonderful voice, her amazing being with the world, which has happened beautifully, I might add. But it is time to set her free. Don't worry, she will be back from time to time. As a matter of fact, she will be the first conversation in the first chapter, which is really kind of the introduction of the new format, if you're looking at this like a book. And even more importantly, she will be hosting her own podcast centering around the work that we're doing at Sanctuary. She will be interviewing members of that community, specifically helping share those amazing stories of connection, growth, and healing to help disarm some of the distrust that much of the general population has around the idea of a psychedelic church or even church at all. So where does that leave us? One place that leaves us, or the place that ultimately leaves us, is what I'm calling my snake den. If you're here watching on video, then you'll be able to see this studio space that Connor and I have crafted. What is pretty cool is that directly opposite of this set is the one that Courtney has been designing and will use for many of her Sanctuary interviews. Recently, in working on this space with Connor and Courtney, they were both joking about how her side brings out this calm, centered place of safety where you can explore your fears and traumas, and how my side, well, it basically is most people's fears embodied. We've got two rather large boa constrictors over there, creeping vines all around us, some skulls, some esoteric books, an altar with all kinds of oddities. At first, I didn't know how to take this when they were talking. My initial response was to cower a bit, to feel that old feeling of the person that I am is unwelcomed or unloved, even by those that I love. That's the story of my childhood. It's the story that I have been working diligently to rewrite. And equally, it embodies that which I most desire to convey to my audience or anyone that I work with. There is nothing to fear. Not only are you safe, but you are the safety. You are the safe space. Very often the thing that we fear the most, our own trauma, our own sense of inadequacy, perhaps even the strange fungus growing in the forest. Once we get closer and see it for what it really is, we find it to be more beautiful and helpful than all the flowery language and, quote, safe spaces we could ever come up with. All that's to say that I love me and I want you to love you, and when we do, we're safe. We are secure. I suspect that many of you will not leave now that Courtney is no longer a staple on the show, that you will find enough value here that you will not only want to stay, but you'll also want to tell your friends. Maybe go ahead and do that after this episode. Tell people, please help spread the word, because this is going to grow into something that is really needed right now. And as I step more confidently into what I am, our audience and the Psilocybin Says community will grow, because there are more and more people like you and I out there. People who know they don't know. Aren't you tired of authorities out there acting like they know what's good for you, especially when it comes to your work with psilocybin or psychedelics? I mean, who is more of an expert on you than yourself? Please, whatever we share on this show, take it, make it your own. My way is not your way. And while our guests will have wonderful insights and information to share, they are not the be-all, end-all. You are responsible for your own decisions. All anyone can do is present you or me with a perspective. We get to adopt it or reject it. Like I said, we have so many experts out there who are just not experts, trying to gatekeep psychedelics. I mean, everywhere you turn, there's a new psychedelic certification program that wants to charge you $7,000 to learn how to be a sitter without it providing any practical experience, taught by people who have little to no actual experience. It's crazy. Even MAPS only requires one psilocybin experience to be a trained facilitator. With all of our talk about respecting the indigenous communities and how they work with psychedelics, is that really showing respect and honor to those traditions? It took 10 years minimum in shamanic communities to become a shaman. Anyway, these are the folks that the government is looking to right now. You realize that, right? As psychedelics become legal, the government is looking to people who do not have real experience with psychedelics to tell them how to develop regulations. It's beyond baffling to me. I suggest that we need a groundswell of human beings who work with psychedelics to stand up and claim this as our right. And I do believe still that the religious, spiritual right is the most appropriate and most effective path forward at this time. Look, I know that psychedelic work requires support and harm reduction, and I also know that in the vast majority of cases, this support and education does not need to come from a therapist, psychiatrist, or medical professional. And the most effective long-term growth comes from community engagement. Y'all know I've been preaching this for a while. The outcomes that we saw through our work in Jamaica pale in comparison to what we've witnessed in the sanctuary community, and the cost is infinitely less. So what's the point to all this? Is there a point? Yes, there is, but it might not be super easy to see when you're listening to each episode, so let me be blatant here. The point, even when I was doing retreats in Jamaica, is sovereignty. Now, I know there was a Vice documentary that said I have a guru complex. It's got like millions of views right now. That's fine. There are those who perceive me as just another white man trying to exert control over how people do psychedelics, but it's wrong. Just watch. Look over the years to see what my work has really been about. Do I have opinions on the most effective ways to work with psychedelics? Oh, my dears, I have opinions on about everything, but they're just opinions. And you will see through the course of these conversations that those opinions change based on new information. And they should. As I've told guests in Jamaica, as I tell ministers in training right now, my hope is that you find your own way to work with these sacred tools. That you will have your own way, unique way of thinking about not only psychedelics, but life, lifestyle, the human experience. And in that unique perspective, you will help the collective evolve in its understanding. The war on drugs was such an affront to humanity, not because it was a war on drugs, but because drugs represent consciousness in a very direct manner. The alteration of consciousness is your divine right, and it is essential to progress. Whether that alteration come from a substance, an experience, or any other influential outside experience. So as we explore different topics and lifestyle choices, my hope is to provide you with a broad perspective that is heavily influenced by psilocybin, so that in your sovereignty, you will be able to come to your own unique perspective. Finally, the title of the show. In calling my show Psilocybin Says, am I trying to indicate that I have more insight than you or any guest into what psilocybin says? Not at all. Which is why we will continue to ask guests, when appropriate, what psilocybin says to them. What is psilocybin saying to me today? It's saying to me, yet again, that everything is energy. That is what psilocybin is saying to me today. And I hope you can feel the energy that is going into this work. It's an energy of love. It's an energy of laughter, of exploration and contemplation. It's an energy of openness and boundaries. It's an energy that has been accumulating since the very first time I read about the use of peyote when I was but a wee lad. It is the energy of welcoming and allowing. It is the energy of abundance and joy. It is the energy of not knowing, but knowing that this too is just right, just like it is. All right. I'm going to leave it at that. Bottom line is that the Psilocybin Says podcast is for any person that wants to be the safe space that they are seeking, where you can live a psychedelic life and move unceasingly towards the most actualized version of yourself. And my friends, a grounded, integrated, intentional, psychedelic self is a beautiful thing. Thank you, and I look forward to sharing our upcoming episodes, information, experience with you. Don't forget, like, comment, share, do all that stuff that improves the algorithm if you so desire. It is deeply appreciated. There we are. All right, everybody, here we are. Psilocybin Says, take 153 for episode.
Hold on. Get that out.
Yeah. This is part of the showing up, though. How many times have we had to start over, re-record, something messed up, something happened? Is your phone on silent, by the way? Just a little reminder. Might want to do that if it's not. Courtney and I just recorded a nice little intro, and then we found out that the recorder wasn't recording. So here we are back again. We had a whole day yesterday of trouble with our new setup. We are in a new space. If you're watching on YouTube or other video media, then you'll see we're in a bit of I consider a forest cave type environment.
It is that.
Yes. We'll get into your critique of it. It's so interesting. I'm really grateful that, my critique of you just got cut out from us not recording, and yet you've had so many critiques.
I'm just trying to meet you at your critique level.
You were a competitive figure skater.
Yeah.
Every turn, every twitch, every placed hair, every dollop of makeup.
Dollop.
Don't you dollop it on?
Something like that.
All right, so this is the first full episode of the new Psilocybin Says. It's the last official episode that Courtney and I will be co-hosting together. I will have her on as an interviewee, as a guest at some point in the future. Probably chapter 2, where I'm going to be talking about sex. And there's nobody I'd rather talk about or have sex with than Courtney.
Yeah.
So that should be a good conversation. Anyway,
yeah.
That's not where
Can't
we're
wait. Can't wait for that. Yeah. So how are you?
Real enthusiastic. Oh yeah. Sure. Boy, can't wait. Can't wait for some more sex with Eric.
Honestly, I'm like not totally confident we're recording right now. I'm like, whatever I say doesn't even matter because it's not even gonna make it. So I'm like halfway there right now. Are we recording for real?
I'm pretty sure.
Are all of these cameras on?
Should I get up and check?
Yes.
All right. Hold on, everybody. Camera. Recording. Yep. Audio. Recording. Camera. Recording. Camera. Recording.
Okay. And that thing is
success.
Doing what it needs to do on the computer.
We're doing it. We're doing it.
All right. Now I can't
wait to see you get over there on your side of this thing and start messing around with all these cameras and lights and crazy stuff.
You're doing great, babe.
Connor has brought in here.
You're doing great.
And I'm looking forward to, as this thing becomes what I envision of it being more of a community of creators. Psilocybin Says is really only going to be one kind of part of this growing community project. You've heard me. Maybe you've heard me. I don't know. I've only been talking about it for 3 months. I've only changed the YouTube channel to Parasol. I'm not sure if you have heard me talk about Parasol or if you know anything about that. But
okay, now you're just being an essay.
That face. Oh, I love that face.
Okay, so
yeah.
how about this? How about we just, since the beautiful listeners have no clue what the plan is, or maybe you do. If you listen to...
You just read.
I know you all are really going to miss out on all of these couple sweet
I do think
arguments.
you and I need to have I think that now that we're having separate podcasts, we're going to eventually need to go back and have a joint podcast again, just so we can
battle lovingly.
Yeah.
It has been really healthy, I feel like, for us to
definitely
work out our perspectives and what we're interested in and talk through all the nooks and crannies of our minds together on Psilocybin Says. So could you talk a little bit more about the direction of this? I mean, like, why are we separating? I know you mentioned it in separating the podcast. We're not separating. Separate. Why is there a sanctuary studio over here? Why is there a whole other studio that y'all can't see yet?
Very peaceful, serene, professional, butterflies and flowers, in polar opposite to the aliens and snake skins and bones and such. Well, yeah, mentioned in the monologue that we're separating now because Psilocybin Says was always intended to be its own thing. It's become confused over time as Sanctuary grew, and it was just a really wonderful place to showcase some of Sanctuary's work and the members and to talk about what we're doing there. And you and I have obviously been creating Sanctuary together with a lot of other wonderful people. And this has been kind of a mouthpiece of Sanctuary. It's still it's hard for me to say, but when we came back, people were curious about what I was doing after Myco, and so used this as a way to help introduce people to Sanctuary more so. And now the Sanctuary's got legs of its own. It's growing really quickly and really wonderfully. And a lot of beautiful work happening there. It's time to really separate these two out. Courtney, is going to be doing the Sanctuary podcast, where she'll be interviewing members about their experiences, about, I don't even know who knows what she'll be talking about. I'm assuming obviously their sacrament work, being a part of church community, spirituality and psychedelics and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'll be talking about everything I fucking want to, which
your freak flag fly.
I let my freak flag fly, baby. I was listening to a podcast teacher today his tagline was "Embrace your weird." That's what people want. Mm-hmm. And so if I can do that and get some good feedback, I'm sure there'll be some negative feedback, but if I can get some good feedback on that, that would be really, really encouraging, because while people probably think that I have embraced my weird, I don't really think that I truly have publicly embraced my weird, because I've always been afraid of what weirdo Eric is going to do to Sanctuary or Myco or the farms or whatever it is that I ran. So this is a place for me to just be and do whatever I want. And if people don't like it, then they don't have to participate. They don't have to listen and whatever. So I'm not Sanctuary. That's the key. And there is that kind of muddling perception as time goes on that Eric is Sanctuary. That's kind of that.
Yeah. Because the more that Sanctuary grows, which, like you just mentioned, is growing very quickly, having communities spring up across the country now and having different leaders of those communities step up and have more of a presence and take some of that screen time from you, then it will become less focused on Eric the
I think it
sanctuary?
already is considerably less, really. I mean, the Sunday services, I'm only doing once a month now. There's a lot more people that are administering sacrament, which I think I think it's a really good thing. It's a really good thing. We've got to diversify. There's too much of that like figurehead stuff. Even like you would almost think that the psychedelic world would be kind of like to some extent immune from that because psychedelics are such a personal experience. But it seems like because they're so new to the culture that so many people are looking for an expert. And there are just, oh my God, untold, well, I've already talked about this in the monologue, experts that are not practitioners. And I don't want, because like I started doing psychedelic content so long ago, and I've interviewed, a number of psychedelic leaders, and I've interviewed a lot of people about their experiences and all that stuff. That's been the bubble that I've been living in for so long. And yet it's really like, psychedelics are a lens with which I see the world. They're not the world that I see. And so what Psilocybin Says will be is exploring all these different topics of interest through a psychedelic lens. And I'm so excited about that because I've always had so many interests. I've always like many different subjects. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what subjects do you imagine talking about on Psilocybin Says now? You mentioned
anything that has to do with lifestyle. Sex for sure is one of my first and favorite. I've got a really awesome animal keeper, a couple of animal trainers and kind of exotic animal keepers. I want to talk about pets, keeping pets or relationships with animals. I'm already thinking about like talking to sleep and dream experts, fitness and nutrition, obviously the sex thing, just anything that relates to lifestyle. I mean, I can even see myself covering things like cars, right? I'm not a huge car guy. I used to have like some muscle cars and stuff. I had like a Nova and Impala, and I'm a little hot and bothered for some Nissans and some stuff. But like, if you think, this is just like off the cuff, but like automobiles are such an interesting and fascinating part of the human experience, and they are so integral in our lifestyle, right? And now, especially as you've got like electric cars that are all synced up to the satellites and all this crazy stuff that's happening, a lot of the technology is, I would imagine, some of it anyway, is inspired by psychedelics. Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla, talks about psychedelics and inspiring his work, right? So there's so many things that we can talk about and find a thread of psychedelia running through it. So it's just like, as I've been like driving around thinking about this, I start to get really excited about all the different topics that we can cover. And there's nothing like that out there in psychedelic media that I know of right now. You can go and listen to 1,000 interviews with Rick Doblin or Dennis McKenna or me or whoever, but yeah, I think this is something that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I might actually listen to your podcast now.
Excuse me.
Wow.
Video is going to be really helpful for this podcast. I'm just saying. Whoa, that looks weird. My bong hits. Remember my bong hits? Sorry, I'm not high. I'm just being silly.
Wow. I'm officially in a man cave. I feel
yeah, you came in here and there was a 5-foot boa constrictor on the loose.
Knocking down my sacred space over there. My sacred studio. The snake's like, bah, get out of here with this butterfly shit.
Anyway.
But yeah, I'm really excited about the direction of this and having chapters that focus on different topics. So it sounds like the first one will be about sex.
No, the first one will be about spirituality, religion.
Oh,
like that's okay. That to me is like, it's the most important lifestyle subject, right? Because I believe we are spiritual beings first. After that, the next most important subject to me is sexuality, because that's, I think, in so many ways, that's how we spiritually connect with other human beings. That's one of the primary, that's how we come into the world, and it's a pretty deep spiritual connection.
Yeah, it's a big part of what has led us here, to be able to sit in chairs. We came from some good old fashioned loving.
I was doing it.
That's right.
Freaky.
It's about as sacred as it gets, right there. Creating life.
Yeah. On our son's birthday, as a matter of fact, we're talking about this.
Yes, our son is 7 years old, you all.
We have 2 children that we intentionally had.
Yeah, which is amazing.
It's rare too.
Very, very pleased.
I don't know many people that. I don't know many people that can say they. Maybe it's because like our parents, like most of my peers, were not intentional. Maybe back then there was more or there was less contraception and mindfulness and Catholicism and all that stuff. Religion, baggage. But
yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions still about how to intentionally have children and just intentionally be in relationship with other people. So yeah, I consider it a great success that we intentionally welcomed our children in. So it feels pretty good to celebrate our son's 7th birthday.
For sure.
Yeah.
And this is a little more intentional for both of us as well. Your work with, or not to say that Psilocybin Says hasn't been intentional for us, but a lot of it has been like the intention was like, let's just do this and figure it out. I'm curious to see, you tend to be more structured, and I'm already a lot more structured with this show than I have been with previous shows that I've done. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that intentionality translates into growth or value for the listener. Because, you all, would I be doing this? Yeah, I think I probably would be doing this. We're already doing this with a very few listenership. We get each episode gets about 3,000 downloads a month, which isn't horrible at all. But would love to see that expand. There's a ton of people out there that are curious about psychedelics and how they kind of integrate into our lifestyle. And I hope and feel that this show is going to be a pretty valuable resource for that. So please share, you all. Also, zooming out a little bit. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, if you're subscribed on the YouTube channel, then you have probably seen that the channel itself has changed from Psilocybin Says to Parasol. And Parasol is basically going to be a community of conscious content creators. And so the YouTube channel, it's going to be an evolving process, but Psilocybin Says and other podcasts that I'm already working with and lining up are going to come underneath of this Parasol umbrella as a podcasting network, as a media network, to help kind of be a rising tide that can lift multiple ships. And I'm really excited about kind of working with people who are new to the space. That's kind of my MO, if I look back at the Mushroom Farm, Myco, Sanctuary, pretty much everything I do is trying to reach the regular people, just the everyday people, and inspire them to chart a new course or to think about things differently. I'm not really trying to influence influencers, right? I love seeing people who are trying to get off the ground. I love helping them get off the ground a little bit and then watching them take flight. That's what I'm really starting to understand about myself. And so Parasol is going to be a vehicle for that. So if you've got a podcast that is conscious content, then feel free to reach out to me at psilocybinsays@gmail.com, and maybe you could be a part of Parasol. It's going to be a value for everybody. So anyway.
Yeah, cool. Wow.
I can't stop creating.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, maybe I'll have my own podcast under Parasol
I hope so.
someday.
I hope so.
Yeah. That's very exciting. Congratulations for the birth of multiple new. Ah! So, when you imagine someone listening to Psilocybin Says, who are you imagining listening to, tuning in to listen to these episodes?
I'm imagining your typical psychedelic consumer that is tired of listening to Rick Doblin and, whoever else. Somebody that wants to explore various subjects through psychedelics. And I think there's a huge population out there, I mean, certainly the number of people who are getting exposed to psychedelics has exponentially grown in the last 5-10 years. And a lot of those people are, from what I have understood through conversations, are getting kind of tired of the same old psychedelic content, and maybe it will bring in people who are not necessarily psychedelic. I am a little concerned, to be honest, about the name. I can't, for whatever reason, I can't get away from the name. This is what came through, and it feels like so strong, Psilocybin Says. But, I'm curious how many potential really good guests will say no because of the name, or if there will be people who are interested in whatever, animal husbandry or sleep research or whatever it is that we study around lifestyle, that will not listen because of the name. But that's okay. I mean, one of the things that I keep hearing over the years as I create projects and listen to other creators is, niche it down. You don't want to go for everybody. And that's something even in my personal life I've been really trying to come to terms with. I have, because of my upbringing, I think that I have in many ways tried to be a people pleaser, try to be someone for everyone. And it's been to my own detriment. It's been to my mental health detriment, my spiritual detriment, because I have then taken it really hard when I'm inevitably not going to be for some people, maybe a lot of people, maybe, 2/3 of the given population would want nothing to do with me, because I'm a little rough, I'm a little outspoken, I'm figuring it out while I'm talking about it. I don't fucking have my ideas refined. And so in my personal life, that has been a source of a lot of turmoil. But here lately, I've been able to kind of think about it differently and just be like, you know what? It's actually cool that I can embrace not being everybody's cup of tea. And then that gives me a whole lot more freedom to just do what I've always wanted to do, which is be me to the realest extent that I can be. And that's that's the message of my work overall. I've said this a few times, but if you watch me and you think that my message is psilocybin, it's not actually. My message is actually follow your inspiration. My message is love yourself as much as possible and freely share that self with the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I had, as you were talking, I had a couple of things come to me. One is that as you were sharing, well, certain people may not come on the show because of seeing psilocybin in the name. And when you said that, I immediately thought, well, do you really want those people on your show anyway? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe you do. Maybe it will be disappointing to hear that from some people. But then again, like what you just said, like, it's the name of the show is like, I mean, it's psychedelic nature.
Mm.
It's a psychedelic, the show is psychedelic.
Mhm.
Like, that is like the essence of psychedelics to me, is like following your inspiration. And like psychedelics are such a wonderful tool in doing that. And I feel like it's only going to be a matter of select years until the majority of the population has heard psilocybin before.
Mhm.
And so many more people are open to exploring psilocybin than they are like exploring mushrooms. I feel like, I mean,
Mhm.
we're in this weird, like, very interesting Renaissance time where a lot of people are very comfortable with like signing up for a psilocybin research study, but they're not very, like, a lot of those people aren't comfortable like joining a mushroom church.
Mhm.
You know, like, I feel like it's not so far off from the future where it will be much more acceptable. Anyway.
Mhm.
So those who are like, ooh, psilocybin, I get it because of folks' professional careers and trying to protect, like, you know, that. But I just feel like the people who you really want to talk to probably will be just fine with it. And then my second thought, which is kind of more of an idea that I'm wondering if you're interested in hearing
For sure.
live.
Are you interested in hearing my feedback live?
Yeah.
Okay.
So hearing you share all that, I couldn't help but think, like, why isn't the YouTube channel and the show just like Eric's show? Why isn't it just Eric Osborne? I mean, you are so much more than psilocybin, of course, and like for all the reasons you just said. But I do wonder if
I don't want me to be a brand. Parasol is going to be like more of Eric outside of psilocybin, but it's going to be Eric outside of psilocybin by Eric uplifting other creators who are not psychedelic. Right? Like creating community is just what I've been doing for so long. It's just naturally what I want to do, is bring people together. And so that's my hope. Psilocybin Says, like, one of the things that I want this to do, and what, even when us doing the show together, what it was pretty effectively done, but I think we'll do even more so, is just exactly what you said, is weeding out the people that are not a good fit for me, right? Like, I love the fact that so many people in the Louisville community and sanctuary community have said that, you know, being around our community is the first time they've ever been able to talk about psychedelics freely, right? And with that, I've often said, like, like, I'm your vibe check. Like, if you're hanging out with me, if you see somebody hanging out with me, then you know they're cool with psychedelics, which generally opens up to a lot of other different alternative lifestyles, right? So it's just, I like it as a way to filter out the people, you know? There will be people that will want to work with me. There are people that do want to work with me based on how they hear how they hear me present myself and my ideas through Psilocybin Says, and there will be people that don't want to work with me because of that. And so that's one of the intentions behind it. I just don't want Eric to be a brand.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Think about, would you want, let's just imagine that this show does really well and ends up with whatever, 500,000 subscribers or followers or whatever, you know. Would you want Eric Osborne to be the thing, like, or would you want like a separation with a brand like Psilocybin Says or Parasol?
Baby, I've always wanted a shirt with your face on it.
Shit. Can you imagine like being not that I'm not comparing myself, but I'm just, what comes up for me is like somebody like Gary Vee or Tony Robbins, right? Can you imagine being the spouse of someone who is a brand? Like,
yeah, I wasn't even thinking that big picture, so not really, no. Although I would like some panties with your face on it.
oh, we can manage that.
We can just make that happen anyway.
We can do that anytime,
We
any
can
day
get a
of
lot
the
of
week.
custom.
Any day, baby. I'm ready.
Okay, you're getting underwear with my face on it.
100%. I'll wear your panties with my face on it. I don't care.
Whoa, whoa. Now that's psychedelic. Could get like my face on the front and then your face on the back.
Yeah. And so if you're not willing to work or interested in working with someone who would wear, you know, their wife's panties with
their own face on it,
then now you know.
Get
You've
out
been
of here.
self-selected.
Connor, you need to put that in the intro. Move that right to the front. So everybody knows what they're getting into. Well, I'm really happy for both of us in this new direction. When we started recording, because we recorded this whole thing yesterday, and then the audio card was full, so we worked through a lot of exploring this new phase together. What we thought was with you all, but it was really just with ourselves. And when we started recording that yesterday, I started out feeling pretty sad, which is different. Today I started out feeling happy. Yesterday I did feel sad because this has been such a wonderful learning experience and connection experience and personal confidence experience for me. And it is bittersweet to be moving in a new direction, but it's more sweet. It feels more in alignment with our growth and where we're at. And
can you talk a little bit about that, kind of your journey through building confidence on video and in podcasting? I would suspect that there are, at least a handful of people who listen to this episode who want to create content, and maybe that hump of, self-consciousness is too much for them to get over. How would you kind of speak to those people?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's a perspective. I didn't even think of it that way, that content creators or aspiring content creators might be listening to this. I personally, I just do not think I would have kept going if it wouldn't have been for you and the accountability that we have with each other and that you had with me, or I had with you, because I just I was not valuing my perspective and my voice. And it took a while. It took 30 to 50 episodes until I had a handful of people tell me that what I shared on an episode changed their perspective in a big way. And that they're so grateful that I show up and record with you. And it wasn't until then that I started really feeling like I was actually having an impact. Up until that point, I thought, I'm just doing this because I said I would, and I feel like I'm growing from it, but I don't really think other people are. I felt like it was more selfish, for me. And kind of like appeasing you a little bit, just because like you really wanted me to do it. Not like I was doing it to appease you, but that you saw the vision that I could not see. And I was just kind of like trusting, leaning on that trust in your vision there for 30 to 50 episodes. And so getting the experience and talking and showing up and talking, learning how to navigate my own thoughts to other people in this way, in this format, has enabled me, has given me the confidence to do more things besides just record podcasts. But it's empowered me to show up in a more confident way to the women's circles that I've been facilitating for the last couple of years. It may have even given me the confidence to host the first women's circle that I did in person in Louisville, because that came after we started recording Psilocybin Says. And in a really kind of vulnerable transition phase in my life where I was, I was showing up with a baby on those initial episodes. Like we had a little baby and I was nursing her, and she's 3 now. But that was a constant. I was like being a mom, and we were stopping and starting and, taking care of her and changing diapers, like while recording and writing outlines for the episodes while I was carrying her and bouncing her. And I was like with the computer, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I don't know what we're doing, but we're trying to do something and we're showing up for it. So yeah, that was like a very like spongy, formative growth period for me, where I just wasn't sure what I was going to do next and put my energy into. So having the opportunity to come here and hear my own voice and reconnect with you, my partner, in a way where I felt you listening to me and wanting to hear my perspective in this place where I just felt like a raw mom. I was just like, in that raw mom newborn phase, just gave birth, like, I don't know, coming back from Jamaica, not sure. So yeah, doing this has empowered me to do other things. And besides the women's circles, it's empowered me to just feel like I have more of a valuable perspective on leadership calls within Sanctuary and our organization, being able to practice, again, like navigating my own thoughts and hearing your reflections. Like, it's been so empowering in so many ways. And just beyond that, like personal relationships, being able to voice how I'm feeling with friends that I didn't have when we started recording Psilocybin Says. And, yeah, I mean, gosh, so much. Like, it has empowered me so much on like all levels. And even our kids, raising our kids. Like, we've had conversations here, quite a few conversations about our perspectives on our kids and how we talk to our kids and how we talk with our kids and navigate weird parenting dynamic struggles with kids and culture. And that's informed the way that I've showed up with our young kids. Like, after having a deep dive conversation on specific topics like Santa Claus, I've felt more empowered to talk with our son about those topics. So yeah, for anybody who just isn't sure what the point is in like starting your own channel, following your inspiration, I would encourage you to consider the impact that it might have in other parts of your life. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel, as you're talking, I just feel so privileged to have been able to watch you transition from that place of kind of not taking yourself seriously to taking yourself much more seriously and seeing your value much more. And it's actually gives me so much more confidence just in my ability to follow my own vision. Because what is happening now, this transition that's happening now with you going into sanctuary podcasting and your own kind of thing, like that is the vision that I had, not from the start, because the first vision was what's happening with Psilocybin Says now. But then when we came back, and I don't remember exactly what like triggered it, but there was a point where it just became like it was really important to me. And I think a lot of it was, our conversations about your role at Myco and how you were so much in the back seat,
Mm-hmm.
And I just like knowing, one, how much value you have to share. I was really wanted to help bring that to other people, and then also seeing the kind of isolation, left outness that you experienced. It was really important to me to give you like a front and center space with Sanctuary. And like, just like here, looking in your eyes and hearing you talk, I just feel like, I don't know, I feel so incredibly privileged to get to know someone like you so well, and to get to get to love and be loved by someone like you who is so fucking courageous and so consistent in showing up is a really powerful mirror for me. And in the times when I have the most self-doubt or self-loathing even, it is truly that you keep showing up for me and our efforts together, our family together, has just helped me feel so much value in myself. And so it's like there's like this whole, like, I'm experiencing you as the podcasting Courtney and as the wife, friend, family member Courtney, and seeing how both of those roles have kind of like worked together to create a more empowering person. And so I don't know, just like I'm really humbled and I'm really honored. And when what feels like the world, I know it's not the world, and I know I'm too sensitive at times, but when it feels like the world is critical of me and wants me to sit down and shut up, that you keep encouraging me on is just so powerful. Someone as high caliber and high quality as you. I am curious, like this is a bit off topic, but as you were talking, I couldn't help but wonder, we've talked a lot about kind of mental and emotional health in these conversations, and a lot of that has been kind of around our relationship. And for some reason, I feel really compelled to have you speak to kind of that journey. This transition here from the old Psilocybin Says to the new Psilocybin Says, it in so many ways it marks like a passage of growth, kind of a maturity. And in the last 3 years, we together have done more focused work around our relationship, our individual and mutual mental and spiritual health. And so, I don't know, I'd like, can you talk a little bit about maybe how this show has played a role in that kind of evolution of our relationship with mental health. But also too, I'm just kind of generally interested in your observation of me through this last 3 years, because this show has been a really important part of my mental health. For me to show up, continue to show up, do the thing that I said I'm going to do, and to be really honest and vulnerable, because I have talked quite a bit about my own mental health struggles on this show, which has been really, really valuable for me, and I know for audience members who've written in and said that. So thank you all for that. But yeah, just can you kind of speak to that subject as it relates?
Yeah. I'll give it my best shot.
Okay.
Well, thinking back to when we started the show, and like I just mentioned, for me, being in that raw, vulnerable place as a new mom, and for you in a pretty raw, vulnerable place, coming out of selling the business in Jamaica and coming here, and all the emotional challenges in between and running through that. Anytime, I would think there's people listening that can relate to this. Whether you're like leaving a job that you've had, that you've put tons of energy and heart into, and for whatever reason left the job and didn't know what you were going to do next. Or if it was a relationship like that you put so much energy into and just we're not sure where you're going to go after that, whatever like big transition, y'all listening can relate to this. I mean, that's where we were at when we started the show. And in that place, that's like a blank canvas place where it was an opportunity for us to sort through, like throw spaghetti at the wall, kind of like I know you had a vision for Psilocybin Says. And at the same time, we were together working through like, how does that actually play out and
it's not a moneymaker
in episodes.
It ain't making money. That was
right.
That's also really relevant when you have a family.
Yeah, for sure. And there was a strategy behind it. Like you mentioned, people were asking, what are you up to? What happened to Psilocybin Chronicles? Like, what's going on? And we also learned from previous ventures, like, we want to be transparent with people about who we are and our lifestyle, our relationship, being intentional, ethical, non-monogamous relationship, and us figuring out what that looks like. And just like wanting to show people who we are and who you are in a transparent way as we're building community, which we didn't know what that was going to look like with Sanctuary, really. We may have had like a couple of members or something when we started Psilocybin Says. I don't know. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has felt like almost like art therapy in a way to me.
Mm-hmm.
In the way of like we're painting with the ideas, the topics for these episodes and the outlines of the episodes when we had them, when we could show up with them. And almost like journaling as well, like therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we're talking about like mental health or
Mm-hmm.
emotional
Mm-hmm.
health,
Mm-hmm.
because we would have conversations like leading up to these episodes. Like, okay, I think I want to talk about this. This is what's inspiring me right now. Or how about we talk about this? And the other person, you know, would ask, well, why? What can you talk more about why you want to talk about that? So having the show was facilitating those conversations with us and within ourselves. And I know it was for me, because I had a running list of topics that were interesting to me. And as you would bring things up in our day-to-day conversations, like, oh, that would be a cool thing to dive deeper into and explore more together.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add that to the list. So it was a cool way to explore things we were already interested in and try and tie them back into intentional psychedelic practice in the world of psychedelics. Um, so yeah, and with you specifically, because you asked about your growth, like what I've seen, and you mentioned that episode, which has positively impacted, I know already, like quite a few people about borderline personality disorder and is it a blessing or a curse? Like kind of exploring that. And I mean, I don't know, like I've seen you grow so much, like exponentially. Like in the 11 years we've been together, in the last few years, you've grown like when I say that you've grown, I really mean that you felt like more of you, like then you've like stepped more into who you are and have been letting go, like learn to let go of the rest more quickly. Like in this past few years, then it's just been such a wonderful thing to watch with you and experience with you. This is just feeling you like loving yourself is like the best feeling. It's one of the best feelings for me. Like me loving me is like the best feeling, but then like you loving you is pretty close. Like,
yeah.
So having this place to be you more, I certainly feel like from this perspective has been a huge part of that process for you of loving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I'm curious about your perspective on
I
all
think
that.
that's in large part how I would describe it. That I feel like I'm often because I am like I'm good at a lot of things. Like, you know, I built all that stuff and I build stuff and you know, plant our yard all up and all the facilitation, and I've been a teacher and I've done all these things. But the work that I've done that actually helps me feel the most value for myself or feel most valuable, recognize my value, is work that I do that inspires other people. And it's amazing how many people will say, like, oh my God, that episode like really inspired me. You know, that conversation you had. And I can be a really good conversationalist. I can really help people feel comfortable and safe, and ask good questions that help people kind of explore their thought process a little deeper. And so there's definitely a part of this that seeing my ability to positively impact others helps me see my own value. What I'm hoping that the new show will allow for is for me to really appreciate my curiosity. Because I am a very curious person, and when I'm when I get into a place of real like self-depreciation, it is exactly what you said. It's the not loving myself. So the more space that I can carve out to love myself and to value myself and what I bring to the world and the lives of others is going to be a massive positive impact on my mental health and my self-perception. You know, I went through a little moment this morning when I was talking about how, you know, one of our friends hasn't been coming to the community circle, and like this morning, and your response to that was kind of, I interpreted it as like, just freaking get over it. Not everybody likes you. And initially that was hard to take, but then as I thought about it and felt it, then like it kind of comes back to this letting go of wanting or this perceived need of everybody to like me. And that's such a big part. I'm coming to see only now at 45. That's such a big part of loving and liking myself, is being 100% okay with not everybody liking me. As a matter of fact, being 100% okay with some people thinking I'm a fucking dick. Because, you know what? Sometimes I can be. And sometimes it's called for. And sometimes it's not. And sometimes I need to pull back and whatever. I'm okay to learn that. I'm okay to feel that out. And explore that in real time. Apologize when necessary. Acknowledge where I've like whatever overstepped a bound or whatever. But like you don't learn that stuff through tiptoeing through life. And so I would, you know, the conversation Jason was saying yesterday, you know, like the strategy of going as fast as you can and breaking things along the way is definitely a creative strategy. It's not the only, and it's not the one that should always be used, but when you look at like major shifts that have happened, that's a lot of what's had to happen. Is somebody just had to say, I don't know what's on the other side of this wall, but I'm gonna fucking find out. I'm gonna have to break shit to do it. And so like it just kind of ties back into me finding love for the way that I operate, and also being willing to modify the way that I operate when I recognize that it's unhelpful. There's absolutely times, I didn't tell you about this, there was a little Facebook exchange yesterday with someone who has been a critic of mine publicly. And the way that I went about communicating my feelings around the thing, I did like in a like hard boundary, but also compassionate, joking, caring way. And I was pretty proud of myself for that. And I was listening to this guy, the Todd Herman guy, that please be on my show, Todd Herman, who's doing the alter ego work, and he's done some work with maps. And this guy was like, he was basically kidnapped at his church camp by the camp counselors, 2 of them, held hostage for several days, raped over and over, videotaped. It is one of the most popular child pornography videotapes in, he says, the child porn community, which I'd like to even think that's a thing. It's fucking horrible. But this guy has talked about this all over the place. He's used psychedelics. It's such an incredible, impressive story. But what I was listening to him talking yesterday, and he was saying how, before he even realized this abuse that he experienced, he's like in his 30s when he finally like realized and started speaking about it. He said he had been a people pleaser, and he had always just tried to make people happy or whatever. And since he had learned to love himself, that he was so much more able of just being like, no, you get a fuck you. Like, I don't have to be like everybody's little pushover. And I'm on a bit of a tangent here, but like this, one of the things that I want to explore in this new format, and one of the things I've noticed as I interview people, is that I tend to be really soft on people. I tend to be really agreeable in interviews and conversations like this. And I want to push that boundary for myself a little bit, because that is an unhealthy boundary that I have in my life, because I have felt my boundaries overstepped so often because I was allowing it, basically. Then my response has been to push back very hard, right? But as I love myself more, and that it was also like a defensiveness from not loving myself. It's like, okay, you're critical against me. Well, I don't love me either, so fuck me and fuck you too and fuck it all, Whereas as I become more healthier and more mature and understand myself better, that I can be like more of the thanks but no thanks, instead of just like fuck you, me, and everybody in between, and so when I'm having conversations with people on this podcast, I want to push back a little harder and ask some tougher questions when I feel like there's maybe like a boundary that needs to be pushed here. So I don't know how that relates to the question that you asked me, other than like I do see this work positively contributing to my mental health, because it allows me to find out who I am better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That last part is really interesting that you shared about recognizing, learning what healthy boundaries are for you personally. And that's, I feel like, an evolution for every single one of us, is like our boundaries change and expand and, get moved. And that can be an unconscious or a conscious process. So that makes a lot of sense. That's a cool way to think of this work as an opportunity for that.
Mm-hmm. No, I very intentionally have just shown up raw publicly when I do any interview or any conversation, because I want other people to ultimately feel safe doing the same thing. I want other people to know that it's okay to not know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be figuring it out as you speak it. It's okay to fuck up and then go back and say, I fucked up and I'd like to, express this differently. Mm-hmm. The social media world is so much of this, like, it's so polished and nice and look at who I am, and it's just like, it's just a lie, and it's detrimental to everybody's mental health. And so I feel like I have done a service to my larger human family by being really vulnerable and real and raw and learning publicly in real time. And the hope behind that, I was so afraid of being canceled, and because there were, that's been attempted, and I think the only way around that is to just not unapologetically, apologetically work through life, because we're gonna mess up. Like somebody's gonna get up and say something stupid, and somebody's gonna want to tell you shouldn't have a voice, and maybe you said something that wasn't well thought out, and that's okay. You're a human being. So anyway, that's kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's cool.
We'll see where it goes. You all listeners, if you made it this far, then God bless you. Thank you so much.
You don't want to record another 4.5-hour episode to match the first one that we did together?
I think you're good. But I do want to express real and sincere gratitude for those of you who have been listening to the show and continue to listen to the show. And we'll encourage you to share it with people. There's no better marketing than word of mouth. And so when someone that you trust says to you, hey, I think you'll value this, that is goes a long way. So if you feel so, please share. I know it can be maybe a little feel a little nervous about it, like, if I share this content with somebody, but if you have any inkling that someone would benefit from the conversations that we have had or will be having, then I would encourage you to courageously follow that inspiration. And if they say they don't like it or they say they're offended, then you can just apologize and say, oh, my bad. Okay.
Something I'm learning as well is how valuable context can be. And because there are conversations that have happened, are happening now, and will happen on this show that are potentially challenging for someone to hear. But along with that challenge can also be a whole group of people who greatly benefit because topics that aren't normally acceptable to talk about are talked about here. So you can give some context too if you're a little nervous about sharing it with somebody who you feel like will value it. Just share a little bit about what you value, what you valued about the particular thing you're sharing can be helpful too. And I really want to extend my gratitude to you all listening as well, for those especially that have been listening and looking forward to these episodes. It's really meant the world to me to have you all show up. So thank you. And I hope you keep showing up, and know that if you'll miss me, you can find me on the Sanctuary Church channel. It will be certainly different than these conversations because I'll be exploring and featuring our community at Sanctuary and the members of our community. So it'll be much less about me and my perspectives and more about them. But I'm really looking forward to showcasing all of those awesome people. So I do hope that you'll check it out at least and see if there's any value for you there. Sanctuary Church YouTube channel.
Isn't she amazing? Isn't she? No, she really is.
Pretty great.
Yeah, you are. Thanks for doing all this, like for these last 3 years here, helping to grow this and be a part of it. It has been really, really special. And I'm pretty sure that our collaborative journey is not quite through.
No, definitely not. I love you.